as Kieran mentioned, our agenda today, we want to talk about some of the common challenges that businesses are facing. And from the breadth and depth of the people that have participated in these WebExes, these webinars before with us, we do run the full gamut of very small to medium-sized businesses, government entities, private services-based manufacturing, banking, insurance, etc. So what we found over the years of experience in implementation and supporting our customers is there are some very common challenges, no matter where you come from or the size of your entity. There are some common things that everybody faces. So we want to just talk through some of those at a high level, and then also introduce the concept of an ERP and how an ERP may address some of those challenges and in what way. So we're going to drill into the specifics of an ERP. And then even more granular, we're going to talk specifically to NetSuite and how the NetSuite ERP product can help us address some of those business challenges. We'll wrap it up with a Q&A. But again, if you have some questions throughout the conversation, please stop me, raise your hand, and we'll have a chat. All right, so let's jump in. So some of the common challenges, and again, regardless of what industry you're from, the size of your business, it's often really difficult to get to the data. And even once you get to the data, to interact with it. It might be trapped in a cumbersome report. It might be some scheduled process, or you're waiting on things to synchronize across siloed systems. So the data can be really hard to get and interact with. And I haven't met anyone yet in an accountant or finance role who doesn't use Excel for at least one report during a month end or even a year-end consolidation process. So using Excel does make your report somewhat unreliable, and your data can often be stale because it depends on when that information was extracted to get it into Excel. So while Excel is a useful tool, it shouldn't be the focal point of how you get your reporting or to conduct your analysis. We can also have disjointed processes. A single process could be split between multiple departments or multiple systems, or in some cases across multiple time zones where there are different people in those geographic locations that all have a responsibility in that process. So that disjointed process may put you in a position where some of the information is up to date, but maybe not all of it at that point in time. So we're really looking to address the inefficiencies and the inconsistencies that would happen as a result of a disjointed process. And as everyone is all too familiar, the pandemic has put a bright spotlight on many of these issues that are in front of us here. But I think probably most specific would be the inability to access the data without either being physically in the office. Some of you are even still in pods where you're in the office a couple days of the week, you're working from home other times. That brings a whole new layer of complexity where you have to start to consider virtual private networks, VPNs, what kind of hardware do you have available to you? It would be really convenient if you could get to your job and your function, just from your iPad or your cell phone, your smartphone. So the pandemic has brought us all kind of leveled out the playing field when it comes to that level of access. And then lastly, the poor productivity. Again, those siloed systems, or the inability to get the information when you need it to make a critical decision. It's often the case when information might come into our organization and then different pieces of it have to be routed to different departments, and then the information has to be brought back together again. So that productivity, those duplicate steps, you're constantly implementing new reconciliations between one system and another to figure out which one has the most current data. So I guess at this point, I'm interested in knowing if anyone on the phone may have experienced any of these challenges, right? So just a quick poll here. Anybody, yes, you have in the last 12 months. No, you're all good. Everything's all buttoned up and there's no process improvement or system enhancements, efficiencies to be gained. Right, so just a quick poll, quick show of hands, whether or not you have or have not experienced any of those challenges. Charlene, I know the answer for you. I know. All right. Okay, so as I'm certain everybody has experienced one or more of those challenges. For no other reason, the pandemic has put us all in a very common position. So what do we do? How can we overcome some of these obstacles and these challenges? Well, we talk about ERP solutions, and I'll speak of them in a more broad sense here. Oftentimes in ERP, if you're going to be reducing and eliminating some of your siloed systems, you can centralize and cut down on the number of integrations, the amount of hardware or virtual hardware in some cases, right? So you can save a lot with respect to IT costs. And whether we'll talk more about whether it's an on-prem and the licensing structure, but just the cost of compliance. Is your operating system up to date? Is your database been pen tested? Do you have those administrative and network operational issues to be concerned with? And that all costs money because each of those responsibilities has an individual tied to it. So minimizing your downtime, and everyone is starting to come around in a bit more. Our leading edge folks have been in the SaaS world for some time, but it's becoming much more common for enterprises and different businesses across the spectrum to start to consider SaaS or subscription-based systems. So replacing those disparate systems, the maintenance and the licensing, I think I've touched on the IT side of it. But then we switch over to more of the efficiencies. Whether you're looking for project management efficiency to improve upon inventory, supply chain, even the month-end close list on just a financial or a services-based entity. Those efficiencies can be inherent if you are able to introduce an ERP that meets your needs. And then lastly, of course, the increase in transparency, the agility and accuracy of the information, that you're able to react more quickly because it's all in a single spot. So, we talk a lot about acronyms. Everybody has probably heard ERP, CRM, HRMS, BI, but what do all of those acronyms actually mean? I think it's important to sit down and think about what an ERP actually comprises. An enterprise resource planning software, ERP. It means that in all senses, not only from widgets and inventory and product to manufacture and sell, but services, human capital, the human resource part of it, the e-commerce part of it, the customer relationship management part of it. So those acronyms get thrown around a lot, and you've probably all heard of different ERPs, whether it's Oracle or SAP or even PeopleSoft, JD Edwards, etc. Then we move on to CRM with customer relationship management. You've heard of things like Salesforce or Zendesk or other products like that. Human resource management, again, that's going to be where your HR and payroll facilities lie. And then lastly, the business intelligence layer. So for each of those acronyms, you could envision a number of different products that would fall into each of those categories. The reason that I bring that up is, what if you had a system? What if you had an ERP system that would address the ERP piece of it, of course, but also the CRM piece of it, the HRMS piece of it, the e-commerce piece of it, as well as providing real-time reporting and analytics. That's where we drill down one more step into NetSuite and how NetSuite would address those business issues and challenges. Before I move on, just curious if anyone has any questions right, about any of those systems that I just discussed? Okay, great. Let's jump in. What is NetSuite? Well, NetSuite is going to provide that cloud-based ERP, comprehensive ERP, CRM, supply chain, project management, etc. It has a couple of components that are centralized in the core business processes, and it gives you the unified view of your business that's available 24/7, anywhere, anytime, from any device. So you do have that built-in flexibility, as well as constant upgrades. So 2 upgrades each year would ensure that you're always on the latest and greatest version of the NetSuite software. So what is NetSuite actually designed to do? Well, first and foremost, it was born in the cloud in 1998, which happens to be the same year that Google arrived in everybody's vocabulary. So NetSuite has been around for over 20 years, and it was built in the cloud initially. So cloud first and cloud only. There has never been an on-premise version of NetSuite. So some of those other systems that I mentioned earlier, they were originally built to do one thing. They were built to do financials, or they were built to do manufacturing or supply chain. And then they were put together and then made to run in the cloud. So it's pretty evident when you architect and design something cloud first and cloud only, it will have an inherent flexibility and agility that only a product that was built for the cloud could have. So I did mention access using any device, anytime, from anywhere. It's consumer oriented also, so it's pretty intuitive. It's easy to pick up. You don't require a lot of training. And part of that is the way that NetSuite has architected what we call suite success. So no matter your role or your business, your industry, your vertical, NetSuite has taken the 20 years of experience and put in right into the system what you'll be able to get value out of it day one as soon as you implement, because it has contoured and tailored things that would be of use to you. It's always up to date because of that single unified database platform, and it was built to run a business. Inherently, everything, well, I like to say anyway, coming from an accounting perspective, everything runs around the financials. Everything runs around the accounting department, because at the end of the day, that's how you're able to measure whether or not you're being successful, whether or not you're making money, whether or not you have cash on hand or capital to invest in growing the business. So the accounting department, while it's at the back of the house, is often, the heartbeat of the story. Right? So those financial statements are the core centerpiece of how NetSuite was originally designed. And then around that, the customer relationship management, the CRM module, the ability to hook into a storefront online or a bricks and mortar storefront from the commerce perspective, professional services and supply chain management, and the built for NetSuite add-ons. So if out of the box it doesn't do everything that your business needs it to do, there are thousands of specific purpose-built, what we call suite apps, that would tailor it specifically to a need that your business might have. And then lastly, obviously the HR component, where you would be able to run your entire HR organization as well as payroll, and all of it within a unified data source. So that is going to enable the analytics and business intelligence without having to integrate and gather data from other data sources. So most other products out there, as I mentioned, weren't originally built in the cloud. They were built to do something else. Then they were put together and put a runtime in and put into AWS or Azure or some other cloud deployment methodology that does have some limitations. But NetSuite is, from day one, a purely cloud-based solution. That real-time access to the data keeps us away from having to build other things like data warehouses or data lakes that you often have to refresh or build in other components. So the whole requirement for that necessity doesn't exist when it comes to the NetSuite Unified Single Data Source platform. It can be highly customized and personalized should it need to be. So the framework upon which it is built is going to ensure that we have security, scalability, and globalization. So NetSuite is very much a global product. It can transact in multiple countries, but that gives it the ability to be up and running 24/7, 365 also. So it's multilingual, multi-currency. There are country-specific tax, what we call bundles, that can be implemented to ensure that we have the latest and greatest local statutory reporting capabilities in Malaysia, in China, in Japan, in anywhere globally, EMEA, right? So great flexibility and extensive scalability within that construct. So the Suite Cloud, in the way that users can interact, it's able to give you the tool that you need regardless of the type of consumer that you are. So you can see on the slide here that we've pulled out the end user, right? So the flexibility, you could access NetSuite from your smartphone, a tablet, or a desktop. If you happen to be a business analyst, you do have analytics and BI capabilities. From a development perspective, everything is Java and JavaScript based. If you're the administrator of the NetSuite within your entity, you do have full admin capabilities, logging, incredibly robust out-of-the-box roles and dashboards and KPIs. And then also the ability to have that information available to you for governance, risk, and compliance. Right, so the possibilities here, everything that you need. This is an example of a dashboard. So if I were an accounting manager and I came in to work for the day, I might find myself looking over this particular dashboard. And again, it depends on the role that you are assigned or roles. But I can come in and I can see what my whole day looks like just from a single homepage dashboard here. And I can move things around on this. These are all individual widgets that can be customized and tailored to my role or to me specifically as a user. So over in the top right-hand corner, sorry, top left-hand corner, that way, my to-do list for the day, my reminders, and they can be color-coded. So like I said, pretty intuitive. You can see if something is yellow, it's starting to get a little bit close to the deadline. If you miss a deadline, those things are going to go red for you, and you can click on any of them and drill into the specific reminder that you see on that task list. You also have some tiles that give you access, direct access to things that would be meaningful to you as an accounting manager. I have some KPIs down in the middle. I have some KPI meters that help me gauge how we're doing for our targets or our budget. And all of this can be run on whatever date frame you'd like, current year, prior year, current month, prior month. And you can do that, switch that around just with a click of the button at the very top of the dashboard. So the presentation is very clean, it's very user-friendly, pretty intuitive, and easily customizable and made to make the individual feel like the NetSuite experience is specific to them.